Hello, my name is Brenda Lewis and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Rochester Public Schools. Today I'm here to talk with you about the referendum. Rochester Public Schools is seeking an operating referendum on the November 3rd ballot. We are the only item on the ballot. We encourage you to vote. I want to provide you with some facts today about our referendum. The first piece I would like to talk about is why do we need a referendum? The district is pursuing a referendum to continue with the quality programming that we currently have. Sometimes when people think about referendums, they think about something that gives extras or bells and whistles, something like a new building or increases in technology or other equipment, as well as perhaps additional program offerings. At this point, the Rochester Public Schools referendum would continue with the quality programming that we have. This programming, with successful passage of the referendum, would allow us to keep elementary class sizes very similar to where they are today, as well as continue the course offerings that we have that are electives in our secondary sites. What this would look like is Project Lead the Way courses would remain in our middle schools, as well as in our high schools. We would see continued offerings of foreign language, as well as programming with our C-Tech that we are building that building. We also would see offerings of advanced placement, as well as our trades classes would be able to stay the same that we currently have. We would see that with the successful passage of the referendum that we would have these programming stay in place through the 1920 school year. At this time, Rochester Public Schools is seeking a referendum for 10 years that would start in the school year 2016-2017. This referendum would generate approximately $9.6 million our first year and continue for the following 10 years. Rochester Public Schools has been in a situation in which we have been spending down our budget reserves for the past several years. Since 2001, Rochester Public Schools has seen approximately $28 million in cuts. With our $28 million in cuts, the district has seen a substantial number of cuts. In the past 5 years, we have really worked to keep those cuts out of the classroom. For example, I will speak about myself. 3 or 4 years ago, my position was actually 2 positions, so 2 people oversaw and worked directly with all of the schools. We, 2 years ago, made a cut and made my position into 1 position, and that's just one example of the cuts that we have made at the district level. Unfortunately, we are now in a situation where we are unable to continue making cuts just at the district level or at places where students would not be directly impacted. What we are asking for the referendum is approximately $15.28 a month is what, on a $200,000 home, is what the ask would be for the referendum amount. Education in Minnesota is funded. The bulk of the revenue that the district receives is through the state. Then we have a smaller portion, which is through local levy, and that comprises about $23 million of a $200 million budget. And that local levy is really the revenue that comes out of the taxpayers. Currently, the Rochester Public Schools local levy amount is at $309 per student. If you look at state average, that levy amount is $836. Rochester Public Schools is the 7th largest district in the state, and if you look at our peer districts, the largest 13, that amount is $1,067 per student. What we are seeking in the referendum is for us to be at the state average, which is $836 per pupil. Again, that would be approximately $15.28 a month on a $200,000 home. Our referendum would span 10 years, and it is subject to inflation. One of the interesting points about Rochester is it's a growing district and a growing city. So with the tax base, that $15.28 might actually be a little bit less of a tax burden on our taxpayers. I would like to talk now about how did we get into this situation of needing to pursue a referendum for operating. Rochester Public Schools has had a significant budget surplus that they had, and 5 years ago when Superintendent Munoz came to the district, he talked with our school board, and the board and him decided together that rather than doing more cuts that would impact our programs and our class sizes, that the board wanted to do a planned spend down of the budget reserve. Our district policy is that we need to have a minimum of 6% in our budget reserves. We had significantly more than that. So the board agreed to having us do a gradual spend down, which was a planned spend down, to avoid budget cuts. So for the past several years, we have actually been in a position where we have been taking in less revenue than we actually have been having expenditures, and we've been drawing down our savings account essentially. At the end of the 15-16 school year, our savings account will reach 6%, so we are no longer able to spend down that budget reserve as we've reached the board established minimum amount that needs to be in there. Our inflationary costs in the district are approximately 3% per year, meaning that if our utility bill was $100 this year, the following year we would budget that in at $103. And not everything works out perfectly to be 3%, but it comes in relatively. One account will help with another account. For instance, several years ago we had a very cold winter, so our utility bills were a lot higher, but then we might also have less costs when it comes to snow removal. So we work through those pieces, and relatively speaking, we see about a 3% inflationary cost throughout our district on a yearly basis. This year, we were funded on a 2% formula enhancement from the state. The 2% allowed us to really look at pursuing this referendum that, with bringing us to state average on the levy amount, we would be able to avoid those budget cuts through the 1920 school year. I want to talk about next steps with you. No decisions have been made if the referendum doesn't successfully pass. However, while we're not into scare tactics, we want to make sure that you are informed and understand that as we pursue budget cuts, if we do not have additional revenue through the referendum, we would need to look at things such as class sizes in our elementary, course offerings in our middle schools and high schools. And again, we are not about scare tactics, but we want to be very honest and let you know that at this time, with our budget cuts moving forward, we would be unable to sustain the class sizes and the successful programs that we are seeing. Just to put it in perspective, through the beginning with the 16-17 school year through the 19-20 school year, we would be looking at making approximately $14 million in budget cuts. And again, those cuts would be directly impacting our students. We have a wide variety of resources for your reference to receive more information about the referendum. Our website has a plethora of information that provides you with why the need, as well as many FAQs for questions that have been submitted to us. I would invite you to submit a question that you have. We will respond to you, and we will also publish the answers so that you can see that. We also talk in depth about the different funding sources that are in our districts and all the guidelines that we have regarding which funds we can use to pay for which expenditures. I want to thank you for taking the time to educate yourself about the referendum. Please look through all of the information that we have available. We also are available to come out to do presentations to any community or organizational group that would like to have this information. You can simply email us and ask for us to attend, and we will be happy to do so. I encourage you to please make sure and vote on November 3rd. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video.